Good morning, and thank you for joining us today. Before we get started, I want to take a moment to acknowledge that this is a bilingual English-Spanish program with live interpretation. With us, we have Vanessa Flores from Translate NOLA, who is going to walk us through how to get our interpretation features set up correctly. Vanessa? We're unable to hear you, Vanessa. Bear with us just a moment as we figure this out, you all. We can. Thank you, Vanessa. Hi again, everyone. My name is Dr. Libby Saunier, and I'm the Chief Executive Officer of the Louisiana Policy Institute for Children. As an independent source of data, research, and pertinent information for policymakers, the Louisiana Policy Institute for Children works to shed light on the state of early childhood education in Louisiana. Alongside our partners, the Policy Institute has been surveying Louisiana parents with young children as part of a larger effort to help us understand the child care arrangements, needs, and experiences of families in our state. This year's report, Caught in the Middle, Louisiana's Parents, Work, and the Struggle for Affordable Childcare, was compiled from survey findings from November 7th through the 21st of 2024. With the majority of children under age 5 in Louisiana having all available parents in the workforce, one of the state's essential economic drivers is the childcare sector, as it supports and sustains numerous other industries. The lack of sustainable and substantial investments in early childhood education programs has left working Louisiana families in a precarious position. They struggle to access and afford the high quality childcare they need to participate in the workforce and that their children need for a strong start in life. I'm grateful that you all can be here with us today to hear from our panelists as they share the key takeaways and insights from this survey. Before I introduce our moderator for today's press conference, I want to take a moment to thank the Louisiana Department of Education, Agenda for Children, the Rotary Club of Baton Rouge, and Women United of Southeast Louisiana for helping to make this work possible. At this time, it's my honor to introduce you to today's moderator, Michelle Delery, Chairwoman of Women United of Southeast Louisiana and Director of Corporate Communication at Entergy. Thank you for leading us today in today's program, Michelle.
Thank you for the introduction, Libby, and thank you to the entire Policy Institute team for hosting today's virtual event. It's my honor to serve as your moderator for today's program as we share the findings from the Policy Institute's latest report, Caught in the Middle, Louisiana Parents, Work, and the Struggle for Affordable Childcare. This survey provides many helpful insights into the continued needs and challenges of families with young children in Louisiana, which is why Women United and my company, Entergy, continue to support this important work and mission. Throughout today's program, I encourage you to utilize the chat box to share any questions or thoughts that you might have. There'll be a dedicated time at the end of the event for a question and answer session where we will attempt to answer as many of your questions as possible. Now, with that, it's my pleasure to introduce and welcome our first speaker, Melon Baker. Melon is the Assistant Superintendent of Early Childhood Education at the Louisiana Department of Education. The Department of Education has been a partner from the very beginning of the parent poll, so we could not be more grateful for Melon to join us to share the results today. Melon.
Thank you for that introduction, Michelle. It is an honor to be with all of you today, not only because of my work at the Department of Education, but also as a parent who utilizes childcare. And so digging into those survey results, year after year, survey results have found that parents of young children in Louisiana can only work or attend school if they have access to childcare. And so to provide a bit of context, more than 80% of responding parents were either working or in school, full-time and outside of their home. And so as seen on the PowerPoint slide, 76% of the responding parents were employed, 5% were in school, college, or job training. And of those respondents, nearly 75% of parents said they would not be able to be able to work without access to early learning programs. And so this was true across all income brackets, even those in the highest income range. In fact, 80% of respondents making more than $150,000 a year reported that they could not work or attend school without access to childcare. And this was the highest percentage of any income bracket. On the next slide, you can see that a majority of families with young children relied heavily on some type of formal childcare outside of the home. And the most common types of formal childcare were childcare centers, school-based preschools, Head Start, or early Head Start. And in that survey, parents also reported that they needed and used childcare throughout the work week. Over 75% of parents reported utilizing childcare for more than 30 or more hours a week, and 90% said that they had either or needed care from 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. each weekday. We know that when parents are unable to reliably access high-quality childcare, they are often forced to change their participation in the workforce. And the survey results affirmed this. On the next slide, you can see that nearly half of the parents made some sort of adjustment to their work or school schedule to provide childcare in the previous 6 months. So for example, nearly a quarter of parents either had to work fewer hours or had to arrange alternating schedule to care for their children. And over 2/3 of parents said they live in a household where at least one parent or guardian had to take time off from work in the past 3 months because of their children could not attend childcare. And these disruptions in care have a real impact to our parents' ability to participate in their careers consistently. In the survey, on average, parents had to take off more than 5 days in the past 3 months due to a lack of childcare coverage. I can speak to this personally as I will be taking leave from work during the week of Mardi Gras since my child's site will be closed. And so I can identify with those results, having firsthand to adjust my work schedule in order to meet those childcare needs. And so in addition to my personal connections, looking at these results, they also affirm findings by other research entities like the University of Louisiana at Lafayette's Blanco Public Policy Center, which notes a lack of reliable childcare costs employers an annual loss of $762 million statewide from mixed work, turnovers, or other related costs. And so high quality early care and education is critical for children's parents and employers.
Thank you for sharing those findings, Melon, and thank you for your dedication to ensuring that our children have learning and development that they need to have a strong start in life. Next, I'm pleased to introduce and welcome Amanda Robinson. Amanda is a parent leader from Natchitoches Parish. Amanda.
Thank you for the introduction. I'm so grateful to be here today. This latest survey shows us the cost of childcare remains high for parents, with childcare costing the average Louisiana family $7,600 a year per child, and more than $15,000 a year for families with 2 children in childcare. This average includes families who pay the full cost on their own, families who pay a portion of the cost, and families who receive childcare at no cost. For context, the federal poverty level for a family of four in 2024 was $31,200. This means a family of four in Louisiana spending $15,000 per year on childcare would be dedicating nearly half of its income to childcare just so parents could work. According to the federal government, families can spend a maximum of 7% of their family's income on childcare and still be able to afford their other essential costs. Rates are especially high for families paying for childcare and not receiving any type of subsidized care, which was the majority of parents experienced according to the survey. On average, their monthly cost of childcare was $1,183 per child per month, and more than 14,000 per year for one child. This exceeds what is cost 1 year of college tuition. One third of parents not receiving any form of subsidized care were dissatisfied with the cost of their current child care. Am I speaking too fast? I just see the interpreter. I'm sorry. Um, Dissatisfied with the cost of their child care arrangements compared to 19% who received a subsidy but also paid something on their own, and 10% who received subsidized care like CCAP or LA4. A majority of families worried about being able to afford essential costs, including childcare, housing, and utilities. Over half of parents said they were worried about affording childcare, and 56% worried about affording their family basic needs like housing, utilities, and food. Notably, these anxieties about costs were shared across most income groups. A majority of parents with household incomes up to $150,000 per year said they were worried about being able to afford the cost of childcare. As we can see, Louisiana parents truly caught in the middle of wanting to participate in the workforce, but having a difficult time affording it. I myself have a special needs child. So we do have those issues where you don't have that type of care also, as well as being able to afford it when you have to pay out of pocket.
I think I've lost audio on Amanda, but I do want to thank you so much for what you shared. It's really helpful to see how high the cost of childcare is for families across our state. Whether you're dialing in from Louisiana or joining us from afar, thank you for being with us today. And I'd like to remind you again, you can utilize the chat box with any questions or comments that you might have. Next up, I'd like you to join me in welcoming our next parent leader from Franklin Parish. We have Chastity Caesar. Chastity.
Thanks, Michelle. The Policy Institute's latest parent survey shows that childcare enables parents to work, but that many parents still lack the childcare needed to be able to work and provide for their families to their fullest potential. More than 70% of parents said that they could not work without a reliable childcare arrangement for their children. And as it's been reported in Louisiana, 90% of parents rely on access to child care throughout their entire workday from 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. But even with their current child care arrangements in place, many parents still lack the care they needed in order to work. This is evidenced by how almost 70% of parents stated that they had to take at least one day off of work in the last 3 months due to childcare disruption. Access to childcare that aligns with parents' work needs is still not a reality at all for many, as nearly as 30% of parents surveyed needed childcare but did not have it during their weekday hours. More than 20% of parents stated that they either needed it or had childcare during the hours of 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. on Saturdays and Sundays, showing how access to childcare during non-traditional hours is also critical for Louisiana parents to be able to work or to attend school. Other research shows that in Louisiana, nearly 30,000 low-income mothers with children under the age of 3 are currently in the workforce, but struggle to access affordable, reliable, and quality early childhood education while they work. From LPIC's 2024 provider poll, we know that childcare providers have an average center-based wait list of 35 children. And according to the Louisiana Department of Education, the Child Care Assistant Program wait list has 5,000 qualifying children waiting for affordable childcare. So whether it's due to high costs, lack of public assistance, distance to center, or provider wait lists, when working parents are unable to access reliable childcare, their ability to be a reliable employee and provider for their family suffers. In my personal experience, in my rural community, access to childcare is extremely limited. Centers are spread out across different towns, often inconvenient for working parents and too small to accommodate everyone. Many moms, including myself, rely on family and neighbors and friends, but that comes with challenges such as lack of consistency, varying quality of care, and fewer learning opportunities for children. Finding help during non-traditional hours like nights and weekends has been especially difficult in the past, and for myself and for others. I have depended on a patchwork of support, including neighbors, my mom, my in-laws, but a more reliable, flexible system would have make a huge difference for parents like me.
Thank you so much for sharing that, Chastity. And to share our final key finding, we have Myra Jukov. She's a parent leader who is based right here in Orleans Parish.
Bueno, buenos días a cada uno de ustedes. Gracias, Michelle, por cederme la palabra. Es un privilegio estar aquí. No sé cómo lo quiera hacer, Vanessa. Voy a leer, voy a hacer lo que tengo que hacer, pero no sé cómo lo quiera interpretar.
Yes, we can.
¿Me escucha, Vanessa? Ok. Bueno, no solo la encuesta encontró que las familias dependen de la gran media del cuidado de infantil y dejó claro que sin los padres de Luisiana no podrían trabajar ni estudiar, sino que también halló que muchas familias de Luisiana encontraron difícil localizar el apoyo de cuidado infantil que necesitan. Más del 10% de padres estaban insatisfechos con sus servicios actuales de cuidado infantil. Casi uno de cada 4 padres dijo que le resultaba difícil encontrar el cuidado infantil que necesitaban. Los padres después dependen de recomendaciones de boca a boca de su propia investigación, más de cualquier otra fuente de información. Al tomar decisiones sobre el cuidado infantil de la encuesta, encontraron que casi la mitad de los padres encontraron su actual servicio de cuidado infantil gracias a las recomendaciones de amigos, familias o otros padres. Cabe destacar que la facilidad de uso de conveniencia fuera de los factores determinantes principales para los padres a elegir una opción de cuidado infantil, ya en el 43% indicó que eligió su proveedor según los horarios disponibles y el 41% según las conveniencias de la ubicación. Estos factores superan las decisiones de cuidado infantil basado en el cuidado del centro o la preocupación para el kindergarten. Para aquellos padres que planean cambiar de proveedor o que están considerando hacerlo, que no tiene un niño por graduarse de un programa. La principal razón para considerar el cambio fue el costo del cuidado. La falta de seguridad en una colocación de cuidado infantil puede llevar a los problemas en el cuidado infantil. Sabemos que afectan enormemente nuestra economía. En conclusión, que todos los niños tienen el derecho de tener un digno cuidado infantil, independientemente de la raza o religión que sean o tengan algún documento o no. Todos los niños tienen el derecho de una buena infancia y para eso estamos aquí luchando para poder hacer el cambio, para que no se queden con una persona cuidándolos y cambiar el futuro de nuestros niños. Gracias.
Thank you very much, Myra. And we have one final speaker today. Please join me in welcoming Anna Williamson. Anna is the Chief Program Officer at the Agenda for Children, and she's going to share with us some closing remarks.
Thank you to all of our presenters, stakeholders, board members, media members, members of the Policy Institute team, and partners for participating in this important discussion. The body of research on early childhood education clearly shows that investing in early childhood allows caregivers to go to work and contribute to the economy, supports businesses seeking a reliable workforce, ensures kindergarten readiness, prepares children for long-term economic success, and even prevents the likelihood of future criminal activity. To ensure all of these benefits now and in the future, Louisiana must do three things. 1, prioritize long-term investment in early childhood systems by continuing to invest state general funds into the Child Care Assistance Program and establish additional dedicated funding streams for the Early Childhood Education Fund in order to ensure consistent and sustainable support for working families and local funding efforts. 2, incentivize businesses and employers to contribute towards childcare costs for their employees and local workforce to ensure maximized economic productivity. And 3, establish pathways for young adults to enter the early childhood field through Fast Forward and Jumpstart programs, apprenticeship programs, and scholarships to create a robust early childhood educator supply and meet the childcare demands of working parents. With these investments, we'll see children better prepared for success in school and in life, working parents and caregivers maintaining workforce participation, employers having a reliable workforce with minimal interruptions, and communities throughout the state enjoying robust employment rates and economic growth. Now, I'd like to hand it back over to Libby, who's going to lead our question and answer segment.
Thanks so much, Anna. And to all of our speakers for taking the time to join us today and share these critical findings. We will now transition into the question and answer portion of today's events. And I know there have been some question and answers that have been put in the Q&A chat area. And one of the questions was, what about home providers? And so again, as Maddie said, thank you for the question about home providers, but if you could give us some more context around your question, that would be helpful. I do have another question that was sent to me about what do parents do if they can't find childcare that they need? And this is open to any of our panelists to answer. So what happens if you can't find childcare?
Well, I think we could answer that question in a few ways. One of them is simply if you don't know where to look for childcare. So I would say across the state of Louisiana, we have 6 childcare resource and referral agencies. Those can be found on the Department of Education's websites. Each of those 6 agencies cover every parish within the state. And so if you're looking for childcare within your parish, those agencies, you can either call, you can go to their website. I can put our website in the chat box, and there are usually family navigators dedicated to helping parents choose what childcare is right for them, where it's right for them, and what would be the best for their family.
And as Chastity shared earlier, you've had to really rely on family, friend, and neighbor care, right, Chastity?
Yes, many parents like myself, we do rely on family and friends and neighbors when the formal childcare options aren't readily available. And like I said, it does lead to issues such as consistency and, the quality of care. There is no moderation for the quality of care your child is receiving. And then, limited learning opportunities for children. And then if all else fails, then you may have to find different arrangements for work, possibly switching schedules or something like that. And if all else fails, then for that day you may miss work.
I
Thanks,
agree,
Chastity.
Chastity. I
Amanda
agree.
agrees with
I'm
that.
sorry. I agree
Go ahead.
because like in my town, like the kids are out now and we don't have a lot of daycares here, which you do, but it's either full, you're on a waiting list, or particularly when you have special needs kids, a lot of people are not trained for that. I have an autism son, so it's not a lot of centers here in my area that really are trained to handle kids like that. So you come to where you deal with like being able to get your family and friends. And again, if they're unavailable, then you're stuck with either taking off and using any vacation or PTO time, if you have any, so that your child receives the right care.
Thanks, Amanda. And then I want to draw back on some of Myra's comments about, finding childcare in her community is really about word of mouth and who you can trust, and that has the ability to help educate and care for young children too. And then Malin also mentioned about the week of Mardi Gras. She's got to figure out, she has to take off from work to be able to take care of her little one too. I'm going to jump to a question that was also sent, and from a parent's perspective. So there are parents all over this panel with us today. What kind of supports do you have or did you have when your children were under 5 years old that made a difference? And what supports did you wish you would have had? Any of our parents want to kick that off for us?
I had a lot of support from family and neighbors and also the community. There were a few people in our community that were willing to take care of my children, but struggling to find the reliability, because they have lives too, and they have things that come up too. So it's not always very flexible. I wish there were more accessible, affordable options with more flexible, hours for people who have like non-traditional working hours. That would be very helpful for parents like myself.
I would have to say, I'm sorry, I interrupted someone.
No.
Go ahead, and then Myra will go.
Okay. I would have to say, being able to, of course, I'm an adoptive parent as well. So with that, it was like I had to go to resources and find out what I could potentially use, um, as well as being able to make sure that he's safe and that I have family and friends that would help me out. Being that my aunt has been in the school system for over 20 years, I was able to get with her and she was able to get us involved in early steps and Save the Children and different other programs that had just started out here that she was aware of. That's kind of what like helped me kind of go into childcare with my son, because he came to me when he was 9 months old and he's 6 now. But we did my aunt was a big help with me, being that she was already into the educational system and everything. She was able to get us that help that we needed.
Myra, did you want to add to the discussion?
Sí, gracias por cederme la palabra. Bueno, yo tengo la experiencia de tener a los niños en daycare, fueron los 3. En esa época se me fue muy difícil aplicar para un daycare por el idioma y porque en los sitios web no está la información en español. Pero los daycares fueron un buen beneficio para mí porque soy madre soltera, no tengo familia aquí en Estados Unidos, no tengo al dónde dejar a los niños, yo tenía que pagar dónde dejarlos y también el costo era muy elevado para mí. Entonces, pero opté en hacer aplicaciones. Entonces, los niños crecieron prácticamente en daycare y busqué un horario donde era más flexible para mí para poder trabajar esas horas y eso hicieron el cambio porque empezaron a hablar los niños español y empezaron a hablar inglés y empezaron a aprender una educación temprana, lo cual hoy en día ha sido la gran diferencia y nunca digan no puedo acceder a un daycare, por lo menos digan lo intenté y de ese intento pues uno puede cambiar el futuro de los niños. Pero sí, esto, tener a los niños en un daycare hace la gran diferencia, específicamente cuando uno no tiene ningún familiar donde dejarlos o alguien donde que alguien se lo vaya a cuidar. Y yo tengo la confianza al 100% en los daycares, es lo único.
Thanks so much, Myra, for sharing your perspective. That I can say with a surety that that is many families' experiences too. So thank you so much. We had a question, and I'm going to put Maddie Batson from the Policy Institute's team on the spot here, related to we had a question about, I didn't see any data around parent preference for home care. Is there any? Maddie, can you jump in here?
Hi, yes, happy to. And thank you for the question. In our full report, we do show what the parent respondents said they were utilizing for childcare, and childcare in the home of somebody else. So like a home-based childcare was 5th popular behind center-based care, a parent providing their own care to their children, preschool and a school, and Head Start. So we did see that home-based care was the 5th popular, and in our report too, we show how that's changed over the last 5 years of our parent poll report. So we look forward to you reading into that, and if you have questions, we're happy to follow up via email.
Thanks, Maddie. And to Maddie's point that she just made, and Joni Hess asked a question about, did anything stand out to you all about these results compared to last year's poll? I think the thing that we consistently see, and I know this is not quite your question, Joni, but the consistently that we see is the cost of early childhood education is really hard for families. And to Maddie's point, was just talking about home-based childcare, that we've seen a little shift there. What would you also add, Maddie?
I think what's interesting is that year over year, where like the percentages might change within 5 percentile, it pretty is consistent, which could mean lots of different things. I think like what the resounding takeaway from this report is that even with all of the options out there, like let's say the ECE fund, for example, which has had a lot of innovative approaches to funding, which has supported that type of program, it's not enough. Like our funding is not sustainable to the needs that we have. We also see that for the Child Care Assistance Program. There is a lengthy wait list of eligible children of about 5,000 kids right now. And so I think parents consistently want to engage in the workforce, and for many, they have to in order to sustain their families. But childcare continues to still be a cost that makes it really difficult, and dare I say, puts them in the middle or puts them being caught in the middle of wanting to care for their families, but also not being able to afford it. So no major new takeaways, which means maybe the industry is stabilized in a way, but there's still a lot of growth needed really on the funding side of things.
Thanks, Maddie, for jumping in and helping us here. Another question came from Terry about, did the poll demonstrate when most families decide to put their child into childcare? Is it infancy, toddler, preschool? And so it's always when parents decide that they need to be in the workforce or not. And so what we know typically is that infant childcare is really hard for families to be able to access. And so they might want to put their child in a childcare setting, in a quality childcare setting, younger than they can, but there's no availability related to infant childcare. And so when you see wait list on average about 30 to 35 per childcare center, what our providers tell us a lot, oftentimes, is that it is related to infant toddler care because it's so hard to find. And then I have one more question that was sent to me that I want to make sure that I touch on, and it was about how can the business community support increasing access to childcare? And it's one of the things that we talk a great deal about at the Louisiana Policy Institute for Children, particularly because we know that childcare is fundamentally the economic backbone to all of their businesses. If we don't have access to childcare, then our Louisiana businesses don't have access to a reliable workforce. And so there continues to be conversation that we are having with elected officials and business leaders around what are some options from the business community to offer childcare as a potential benefit. And that could look like many different things, but fundamentally the question is, how do we reduce the burden on working families? Because we know, particularly for our families that are ALICE, so those asset limited, income constrained yet employed families, that it is the single highest expense above keeping a roof over their head. And so how do we talk about this with our business leaders? And so those are the conversations that we're currently having right now about how does business lean in? We know fundamentally access to quality childcare is not just the government's responsibility, not just whether that's federal, state, or local. And it's really hard for families to assume all of that responsibility. So how do we work together to have a reliable workforce for Louisiana businesses? And so we look forward to, as we're figuring that out with many people on this panel today and others throughout the state, letting you know what we're learning so that we can be in community together to figure out what's good for business and what's good for families, but fundamentally, what's best for the young children in the state of Louisiana. And so we have a lot to learn, and we look forward to learning from other states and from within our community here. I want to again thank everybody, all of our presenters, and all of you for attending. If you have additional questions or would like more information about any upcoming Policy Institute events, please email info@policyinstitutela.org. To read the full report, you can go to our website at www.policyinstitutela.org. And we have a plethora of information on our website. Before we close out today, I'd like to share some information about an event later this week that is part of our Louisiana Early Ed Month that happens to be sponsored by Entergy, which we're eternally grateful for. We are co-hosting with our state's chamber, the Louisiana Association of Business and Industry, an event on Friday. But there's also another event, particularly for parents. This event is Thursday, February 20th, that we are inviting you as parents to participate in for parent advocacy. We are convening in partnership with Save the Children Action Network. This training will empower parents to become effective advocates for high-quality early childhood education programs in their communities. And you can register using the QR code on the screen or through our website. We hope you can join us in celebrating the critical work that the childcare industry does to ensure our children, families, and our economy flourish throughout the remainder of this year's Early Ed Month. We want to thank you again for attending today's press conference, and we hope that you will be able to join us for the other events that we have the remainder of the month. And not to forget that we are also grateful for Entergy for being our title sponsor, as well as Governor Jeff Landry for declaring February 2025 as Early Ed Month. We can't thank you all enough for joining us. Thank you again.